Happy Thursday, end of August. The dog days of August are going to be ending soon, and we are getting ready for college football and the NFL season. Certainly, life in the NBA has taken a back seat to fantasy football and the NBA, the college football last week, and certainly we got a full dose, but we're not talking about USC, LSU, or Miami, Florida. We've got an article up on ESPN.com. We look at the 2025 offseason, kind of the 10 big questions that are going to need to be asked. And you're probably saying, like, can we at least get through 2024-25 season before we can start worrying about next offseason? I say no, we cannot. So we have that up on ESPN.com. You can read all about it there. I figured we'd do a little bit of a video, certainly in light of the Stephen Curry 1 year, $62.6 million extension. That was kind of the first question that we asked in the article. Will we see more extensions? Certainly we've seen 46 extensions since July of 2023. That's a bunch. Certainly, we've seen Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo. I'm just looking at the list. Larry Markkinen, Jared Allen, Jason Tatum. Certainly, the extension rules that the NBA Player Association and the NBA put in have certainly benefited players. I think with Curry is a little bit of a different situation because you could have just written him a blank check, which Golden State did. The most they could do is 1 year because of the over 38 rule. Usually because Curry has 2 years left on his contract, you can extend for an additional 3 years. However, in this situation, he's capped at one. It's an interesting rule. We're not going to go into it. And I think Curry kind of defies the over 38 rule. Basically, what the NBA doesn't want to do is for teams to pay players who they consider, I guess, past their prime and rewarding them on the back end for contracts that they cannot fulfill anymore. I think you could have given Stephen Curry a three-year extension on this, and the over 38 rule we could have probably put on the back burner here. But that is it. A conversation for a different day. So Curry is off the board here. We've got certainly other players that are eligible, anywhere from Joel Embiid, Jamal Murray, Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, Rudy Gobert, Jaren Jackson Jr. soon, Aaron Gordon at the end of September. TJ McConnell is extension eligible. Michael Porter Jr. at the end of September. Mikal Bridges on October 1st. Next year's extension class is loaded. I mean, it is like kind of the who's who. Listen to these names: Jokic, Booker, Towns, Morant, Williamson, Lillard, Bridges, Mikal Bridges, Trae Young. Trae Young's extension eligible, right? I had a weird dream about Trae Young the other night. I don't know. We're getting into that NBA life, ready to go. Van Vliet, Kyrie, Porzingis, Draymond. It's loaded there. So I would expect more extensions for players to sign extensions to come off the board. Certainly, as we said, Curry comes off the board. I think certainly Durant, Embiid. We'll see what happens with Jamal Murray, who did not play very well in the Olympics, and certainly Josh Kroenke. Their owner came out and said that health, I think, certainly played a big role, and I would certainly agree on it. We had 4 players that have signed rookies: Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, Franz Wagner, Evan Mobley. We'll have a piece on rookie extensions when we get into October. I would expect extensions: Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Suggs. I think that we're going to see a list of guys come off the board. Rookie extensions. Kuminga, Moody, that is going to be guys to watch. That's an article for another day here. So that is one of the big questions as far as expect to see players come off the board, and that will certainly impact next offseason here. I think LeBron certainly is it's front and center once again, just because he's got that player option in that contract. He will likely become another free agent. We will always continue to evaluate what LeBron's next move will be, what happens with the Lakers. They're a team that kind of the apron doesn't impact them as much next year because D'Angelo Russell will become a free agent. They'll have more flexibility potentially to add. Their pick goes to Atlanta, though. the Lakers will always be in the forefront here, and certainly when LeBron has the potential to become a unrestricted free agent, we have to talk about him as one of the things to watch. We talk about Curry in here, and I know Stephen Curry signed the extension here, certainly, and he's under contract for an additional 3 years. But I think it is worth monitoring as far as what happens with Golden State this year. They've certainly revamped their roster. Where do they fall as far as in the pecking order in the Western Conference? I still think they're a play-in team. However, I think they can crack the top 6 here. So we'll see what happens with Golden State, and I think that's something worth monitoring, like the Lakers. But besides LeBron, who else is the big free agents? Here's interesting. So we've got Jimmy Butler, Julius Randle. Both guys got player options. There's a bunch of top starter level guys, which is a lot of restricted guys. 25 out of the 30 players that I have listed as far as the top free agents are either restricted free agents, have some type of player or team option here, or extension eligible. So, like, we might get to next year's free agency, and it might be like Brandon Ingram. And I like Brandon Ingram. Miles Turner. Miles Turner is like one of the few players that he will become a free agent. Miles Turner is not extension eligible. So Miles Turner will become a free agent here. D'Angelo Russell, Brook Lopez. Those guys will definitely become free agents. Not a great free agent class. As we've seen, signing with your own team, extending with your own team has diluted what free agency is here. And that trend will continue to go. And we'll see more players come off the board. Who knows what happens with Jimmy Butler? Who knows what happens with, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, certainly to keep an eye on as far as what happens there. What's the trend to keep an eye on next offseason? I think signing trades. We went from one signing trade in 2022, Colin Sexton. In the past 2 years, we've gotten 11 signing trades, and that's a result of the new CBA as far as the expanded rules, as far as how much money teams can take back. Certainly, DeMar DeRozan doesn't probably get to Sacramento if the rules are like they were in the past. So there are ways for free agents to reroute to another team. And I think certainly agents have become more creative as far as working signing trades. Max Strus is a good one from last year, going from Miami to Cleveland. So keep an eye on signing trades next offseason. That's a big one. Who controls free agency next year? Next summer could be controlled by the Brooklyn Nets if they want to. They've got certainly 4 first-round picks. They've got their own, which could be potentially a top 3, top 4 pick. They've got a New York pick, likely probably an Oklahoma City pick. They've got a pick that is coming from Milwaukee if it doesn't fall in the top 4. They are stacked as far as draft equity. They could have potentially $70 million in cap space, even more, depending on what happens with Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson. Cam Thomas is rookie extension eligible here. So Brooklyn can certainly rebound rather quickly as far as from in their rebuild, because this is going to be a lean year in Brooklyn. This is going to be a top 3. Is it the 12 and 70 2009-10 season? Probably not. But I think Brooklyn's win total is anywhere from 18 to 20 wins as far as with this group, and it can certainly be lower here. So Brooklyn controls free agency, and that's when we're talking about free agents going into the marketplace here. Not a lot of cap space that is going to be available. Right now I'm showing the Wizards. I always want to say Washington, and I always think Malika Andrews is going to tease me about it, and I told her that I'm never going to say Washington on TV. The Wizards and the Nets are really the 2 teams that have $30 million more, and the Wizards probably will have less when you factor in their draft pick. It's really fluid, but cap space is not there. Teams spent this summer $2.7 billion, probably $3 billion in money was spent in the first 2 months. Teams spent. The majority of teams are over the cap. Certainly, they're in that. I think the average salary per team was like $160 million, somewhere around there. Teams spent. There's not a lot of cap space out there. There's a handful of teams in that $20 million range. So that's why it could be interesting for guys like Brandon Ingram, Guys like Julius Randle, who's got that player option. Certainly, what happens with Jimmy Butler. There's just not a lot of money out there outside of Brooklyn. Who is the wild card team to look at? Certainly San Antonio with their draft picks and their cap. They have potential to have the cap space here. They are loaded with draft equity. They've got that Atlanta first. They've got their own first. They control their own first. They've got first from Chicago and Sacramento. They also have swap rights with Boston, Minnesota, Dallas, Sacramento. I mean, they're loaded there. As I said, they could potentially have between $25 and $30 million. So they are the wild card team for me out there. We could probably do our own little video on this. Will further CBA changes and a possible dynasty in Boston? I think that's to be determined. What happens with new ownership? The rules of the luxury tax are going to be changed next offseason. The more you pay, the more that you spend, the more that you will pay in taxes. Boston and Tim Bontemps wrote an article, could spend potentially over $500 million in salary and luxury tax. They are a repeater tax team. Phoenix is in the same boat. They have the potential, $540 million Phoenix could spend salary and luxury tax. Their projected $310 million tax penalty next year is equivalent to Brooklyn, Washington, and San Antonio salaries in 25-26. Who gets impacted by the apron rule? The apron is not changing, not going anywhere. Certainly the Brunson extension has helped New York. We've talked about that at length. Supermax, Luka, it will be the highest paid player in NBA history. I know everyone's linking Luka and Jokic together. I would say that Luka will likely sign a 5-year, $345 million extension, and it will be the largest in NBA history. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has met this criteria, the first player to sign for more than $80 million for one season. Both guys could not make if they don't make All-NBA this year, they're still Supermax eligible because it's 2 out of 3 years. So those two guys, the Supermax guys are not a ton of guys who potentially could reach the criteria. De'Aaron Fox, Jaren Jackson Jr., Trae Young, Michael Porter Jr., potentially Jamal Murray. Those are guys to keep an eye on. Brandon Ingram, of course, if they don't sign extensions here. It's not a boatload of guys because, as we said, a lot of players decided to sign extensions. I think the 4 guys, Cunningham, Wagner, Mobley, and Barnes, to keep an eye on because they have all NBA criteria, similar to what Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton did. And then we've talked about as far as players that are rookie extension eligible. There's still a ton that are extension eligible up until October 21st. Next year's group, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Paolo Banchero, Keegan Murray, Jabari Smith, Benedict Mathurin, Walker Kessler, Nikola Jovic. So that's a little bit of a 13-minute kind of recap as far as what to look for. Just a little bit of an appetizer as far as, and we'll write more about it when we get going somewhere down the road during the season and certainly next year here as far as the 10 things to keep an eye on for next year. But remember, not a lot of money out there from a free agency standpoint. That's why I expect to see more extensions. I expect to see maybe players declining their player option and extending for less if they can get more guaranteed money down the road. We will talk soon. Enjoy college football weekend. Enjoy the NFL weekend that starts next week. Talk soon.